Welcome to Recovering Your Voice, a place where we tell stories. I'm Bonnie.
I'm Carol Ann.
And I'm Collette. Did you find that difficult? Was it hard to connect with us when we're behind these masks? Well, that's what our story is about today. Masks.
And let's unmask them. Welcome to Recovering Your Voice, a place where we share stories. My name's Bonnie.
And I'm Carol Ann.
And I'm Collette. And today I'd like to share with you, we'd all like to share with you, our experiences through isolation. There's different forms of isolation, but I guess the first form that we're probably thinking of right now is through the pandemic isolation. I like to affectionately call it being sent to my room by God, because it was a timeout for me. And he knows that I'm always so busy, so fast, so going that he needs to stop me. And if you've seen my previous video, you realize that the time out can look different. My first, well, no, I'd be lying. That wasn't my first time out with God. But one of my time out with God was when my mom died. And I was like, kind of like sleeping for the year, daily bars, listening to the Message Bible. But it was such a healing time. And I never thought there would be like a healing time like that again. But I was wrong. Because the isolation time for me, the time out when we were in lockdown, was such a great healing time for me. And I'd like to share the other side of isolation, if you'll allow me. It all started when we got that announcement in March that there's going to be some lockdowns happening. And I know it's affected many people in different ways. And I do not devalue everybody's experience. I just need to share mine. It started with that a group of us decided to meet on Mondays on a Zoom conference since we couldn't meet in person. And we met together on a Zoom. And I was so convicted of, if I'm going to join this Zoom, Monday Zoom, I had to bring the authentic Collette to the table. Now that could be very terrifying for some and scary for some, because there's not a clean up an aisle 5 from Bonnie on a Monday night Zoom. And I'm sure I've given some people more gray hairs, especially leadership. But as we were doing it, I really felt led that I was to show up authentically me, transparent, real, scary, very scary. And the message I got was, and this is before masks were a mandate, and the message I got was, as we are required to put on the masks, I was to drop mine and continue to drop mine in front of people. And I did. I showed up and I did drop mine. And the interesting thing is, everything is so like, you know how you have your perfect storms in life? Well, this was a perfect healing setup from Creator God for me. And what he perfectly did is, like, Bonnie had sent me some links before with Brene Brown, and my sister had sent me some links from Brene Brown, and somehow, some way I listened, but my heart wasn't ready. My heart was not ready to hear being real. But this time again, I got another link sent to me, and it was with Brene Brown, a TED Talk. I highly encourage anybody to look this up on YouTube, and we'll probably put it in the description below because Bonnie's good at that. So we went and I started listening to Brene Brown, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's what I just heard. That I had to be authentic, that I had to be real, that if I really cared for people and really showed Creator God's love, you leave the masks aside. You invite people to go to a deeper level. So that's what I started doing. And it started with little baby steps because, God knows me and he knows I'd be running in the other direction if he'd have given me the whole plan. The first thing I had to do was call somebody from the group and just communicate very clearly what my heart was. And it was a very innocent kind of communication, but I get monkeys in the brains. I don't know if you guys do. Somebody had told me, not my monkey, not my zoo, but I'm telling you, sometimes those monkeys rattle my cage and I need to address them. So I called up a good friend that I knew I was already walking in transparency with. And I said to her, I need to be real with you. And I know you're a safe person. Are you up for it? And she went, yeah, absolutely. We graciously walked together and was real. But that was my first step in walking real and putting my heart out there. And it was a really good bonding time and a step, because that's when God said, this is what I require of you with the whole group. And I was like, ow, okay. And there were some things he would ask me to do with the whole group. One of the times was we were explaining how to have real relationships is messy, very messy. And I was just making a mask at my kitchen table. I had offered to set it up in the spare room and away from everything. And my husband said, I'd rather you be with me than in a room. So I set it up at like our dining room table. And when we were having this conversation, I heard, turn your camera around. And people, if you would have saw what he was dealing with at the table and not complaining, this was part of the steps to being transparent with each other and being real with each other and dropping our masks. And sure enough, the mandate did come up about wearing masks. And I know a lot of you struggled with wearing masks. I struggled with wearing masks. I struggled with wearing masks when it began, when nobody else was, but I knew I had to because my husband works in the school system. And you felt like, you stood out. And then I struggled wearing masks through it all, like anybody else who, I love to smile at people. And I couldn't. And that took so much of my character away, because I learned the life lesson from my mom. I think that's the greatest life lesson she shared with me, was that I would watch her smile at everybody that she'd meet. And I go, well, do you know them? And she'd go, oh, no. And I go, well, why are you smiling at them? And she said to me, and I was about 12. And she said to me, Collette, when you're walking down the street and you walk and you see somebody and they frown at you, how do you feel? And I go, oh, geez, it makes me feel bad. And she goes, right. But if you go walk down the street and somebody gives you a smile, and I went, yeah. And that was a life lesson that I took. So to be like this all the time and not being able to smile totally cut into my personality and totally made me vulnerable of having to express myself even more with words. So there was a lot of cost. I'm not downing the cost that it cost us to be in the pandemic wearing masks, and health issues. I was making masks. I was making one ply for those that needed one ply because they needed oxygen, people. Heart congestion, heart failure is a problem. So there was not the judgment of that. But as the masks were being called to be, deep in me, I was kind of celebrating. I know that sounds crazy, but God promised me that as I wore the mask, my masks would come down. And God always keeps his words. And the last 2 years have been such a healing time for me, because the isolation, being sent to my room by God, was a way of being still before him. And the funny thing is that I am a number 2 on the Enneagram. If you're into the personalities of the colors, I'm a blue. And my personality is I like to do for people You can't do much when you're in your room alone. You can't keep busy doing. You have to start being still. And the interesting thing is when you're doing this and pointing and directing all your energy outward, when this stops and you can't, 3 fingers are pointing back at me. And I had to look at me and what God wanted to teach me in this. On my 2 extremes right now in one, my grief and my joking around, my, covering it with jokes. So I'm all over the chart here, guys. So I'm being honest with you. Because I'm learning it's okay. I can be hurt. I have feelings. I'm allowed them. Yeah.
These emotions, these feelings, this, feeling like, you're angry, you're whatever, that's real. And that needs to be out there. That's part of the authenticity. You don't have to hide that. But you're doing a show on authenticity, being real. And yet you're trying to shut down your authenticity right now. You're trying to do the opposite of what you've been called to do right now.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
And we are giving permission to people to let those masks off, to be real, to show these kinds of emotions, to say, I am not happy, I am fearful, I am sad, I am happy. I
do not have to suck it up, Buttercup.
Amen.
Okay. God brought us together for a reason, so that we complement each other, we have each other's back, we support each other. This is what unity looks like. This is what real looks like. I want to invite everybody to have this, what we have. Okay.
God is saying, showing up to church and, being that I'm all put together and I've got on the expected outfit and I'm saying the expected things and my kids are doing the expected things, is what God's looking for. No, he's not. Collette, I wonder if you'd clarify what you were talking about, what you meant when you talked about as you were putting on wearing the mask, your mask was coming down. That sounded like an opposite, but could you explain that?
Sure. When I say mask, years ago, I had a Thursday ladies group and we had 2 rules. Leave your masks at the door. This was before pandemic, people. Leave out your mask at the door, which meant we don't hide behind a certain facade. We're going to come in here real and raw with each other so that we can get some healing. So our rule was leave your mask at the door. And we experienced a really closeness that was like a unity together, that we supported each other and we could share anything. The other rule was everything was confidential and nothing goes outside that door. So it was a very safe place, Carol Ann, to do that. So when I say mask, I mean, invite people to be real. Take that mask off and invite people to be real with each other. The way messages I got as a kid and growing up was, suck it up, Buttercup, or whatever. Just like, just keep on keeping on. Like I would be the little engine that could and just kept on, no matter how I felt or what I did or whatever. And there's no healing in that. For me, there's not even like a recognition that I need healing in that. That is so denial. But if and I'm not saying guys go and tell everybody, because we all know that's not healthy. Okay. That's not healthy, but you select few in your life that you can be totally real with and grow and heal together. And then this way it overflows other relationships that you can invite into this a little piece at a time. to see if you can trust them with your heart, not like give the whole heart. I've learned not to do that, but a little piece at a time, and then go deeper and deeper. Relationship takes time. Facebook's great. Facebook's great when you want to say happy birthday, but to get deep onto deep, it takes time. And so that's what I meant, Caroline, by taking the mask off. Be real with each other. Love each other enough to be real. Love each other enough to actually call them on each other's stuff in a loving way, people. Like in a loving way. Check your motives. If you took an ounce of pleasure in telling them that, your motives are wrong. Go back to the drawing board, because if your heart is, but I love them so much and I want to walk in it with them through it. Like, I cannot tell you how many times Bonnie and Carol Ann have walked me through some stuff that I needed to be real with. So that's the invitation, I guess, that I was saying, take the masks off. And then as the other ones go up, like as in like the physical, the spiritual masks will be coming down, and we are going to get real with each other.
Collette, as you were speaking, I got the feeling that taking masks off can be really messy. Would you agree with that? And what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, taking masks off first can be really messy for us first, because it is scary, guys. It is extremely scary to be totally real and believe that you will still be accepted for who you are, completely for who you are, through the healing, giving each other grace to heal into the situations that you're at, and this is not a one-time thing. This is a life's journey. It's a decision each minute, each day, and you're only going to grow that trust a little bit at a time. Yes, it can be very messy and very scary. It's not something that came naturally for me. To explain this, I'll have to take you back to me as a kid in the playground. And in the playground, I was the kid, not joking, not kidding around with people, not even talking, believe it or not. I was the kid that was all alone with no friends. And it was really hard, extremely hard when you're like that, because you feel like there's something wrong with you, or you're not good enough, or, so many different aspects comes with that, and wounding. And I remember thinking one day, I can't take this anymore. I can't take this anymore. This rejection, this isolation. Let's bring it back down to that isolation, this isolation of having nobody. And I remember standing outside the door of a like coming into from outside, because recesses were like torture for me, absolute torture. I hated recesses. So when I was standing outside the door, I remember looking up, and I mean, my foundation of church was not strong, but we all believed in God in our house. And I looked up and I went, God, I can't take it anymore. And I literally had a vision of the future, of me older in the future, and seeing treasured friends, but a treasured friend, that God promised me that I would have real friendships. And that got me through. To continue into my journey of going, okay, take the next step. Did that mean people all of a sudden played with me on the playground? No. I would love to say it ended that way, but no. Okay. But I had hope, and hope deferred makes a heart sick. And my heart was extremely sad and heavy. So that promise from God carried me through. So as you can see, I had already experienced isolation as a child, like isolation, being cut off. But the amazing thing is, when you've already faced your worst fears, You open for the real stuff to come in. And you know what is real and what is not on that level. So you know when somebody's being authentic with you and when they're not. And when you face your worst fear of being alone and knew you survived the loneliness of it, then you know that you can wait for real relationships that will go deeper. And you'll have friends all different levels. You'll have friends that you can be deep onto deep right away, and you can not see them for years. Hit pause on the remote control of friendship, and then just hit play when you see them again, because it's just that's what you had. And then you can have some people in your life that you know that there's a certain level you go to, and that's okay. Every relationship brings something to the table. Every relationship. And you need to bring yourself to the table first. And don't expect them to come to the table first. You have to be the one to meet them at the table. And if they accept the invitation, go further. If they don't, respect that. Respect that they're not comfortable doing that yet. And grow as far as whatever the relationship wants. But I cannot tell you how important it is to have people that you can be completely honest with. If you want to know who Collette truly is, don't ask my pastor, ask my husband, ask my kids, because they're the ones that have to live with me. So they see my good days, my bad days, and my crazy, crazy days and my breakdowns. So I'm not expecting people to just go out and invite people to that degree. That took years and years and years to grow. And guess what? We're still growing in it. We're still walking through situations that we have to grow in and love each other and be real with each other so that we can grow together.
Collette, being real, I would assume, is being vulnerable to others. And vulnerability can often mean that there's a cost. What have you found to be the cost of being real?
The cost for me was facing my root of rejection. Because if you have a root of rejection in you, you're never going to be real. You're never going to be real because you're always going to feel or receive not good enough. And the only steps for healing that is, first, stop rejecting yourself. Stop rejecting yourself first. Get to know who you are. I was never one to do personality tests, but I'm finding it grateful and helpful to be doing it lately, because I'm starting to see who I am and how I function. And I don't buy lies anymore of who people tell me I am. I'm starting to realize and not be angry the way God created me. You can't be real with a person if you're not real with yourself first. And I needed to get real with myself first, because as I talked about the monkeys in the brain, my monkeys were always saying, you talk too much, you're too much, you're this, you're that. And I always looked at Proverbs 31 in the Bible of the perfect woman. And I'd read this and go, oh man, failed that test, failed this test, failed that test. Looking at it, because I saw her as a very gracious, loving, calm person, like my co-hosts are. And when I try to be a Bonnie or a Carol Ann, I'm not truly walking in authenticity. And I am doing a great injustice first to God, who created me distinctly for his purposes. I'm trying to pattern myself off after somebody I'm not. And then a great injustice to me, because guess what? I'm figuring out I matter. I matter. I matter what I feel. I matter how. I need healing too. And if I'm so busy doing this and trying to run after everybody and help everybody, I get nothing for me. But if I, in isolation, sit before the throne of God for 2 years and just it's him and I talking, I'm beginning to see he loves me. He loves me for me, and he created me for a specific purpose that I need to be free in that. Does that mean I'm perfect? No. First of all, ask my co-hosts who really know me, and, ask my husband and my kids. But at the same time, I try to be authentic and bring me to the table because they are worth, and guess what, audience, you're worth me being real with. And I think that's what I'm trying to do today, is being real and inviting everybody to be real with each other, because I want to go past my Facebook profile. Okay, because we all post different things on Facebook profile, and that's great. That's great. But we are personally inviting you into having a deeper relationship for those who choose. Always, always make it an invitation to become real. Never demand it, because that is not an invitation. That's a summons. And nobody likes to be summoned into a friendship. The second thing I would encourage you to do is to get to know who you are. We're in a world that tells us what we should be, what we should look like, what we should like, what we should dislike. But if we don't know who we are, if you don't know what you stand for, you're going to fall for everything that's given to you. And you are going to lose you in the process. So take time to get to know you, what you like, what you don't like. Like, I literally had to sit down and go, what is my favorite color? I love a Julia Roberts movies. A movie that is The Runaway Bride, because that really spoke to me. Not that I ran away, but that she kept running away. Just when she, at the point of commitment, she kept running away, and she kept running away. And the reason why she kept running away is she truly didn't know herself. She became whatever her significant other was. So the way the reporter in the movie tested her was he'd ask every fiance what his favorite eggs were. And some would say scrambled, and some would say fried or boiled. And when he would say, and what was hers? Inevitably, she would say the same thing, because she became who they wanted her to become. And you can't really truly commit when you're just becoming just a reflection of what somebody wants you to be. That's not who you are. I mean, you will come together and have some relationships, but it'll never be an authentic, deep onto deep relationship if you're just mimicking a mirror. We are created to be unique and one of a kind. Now, when I say you've got to, first accept yourself for who you are and, love yourself and get to know yourself. I couldn't do that until I knew that God loved me unconditionally. And that's just truth. And I received that. This is why I say I can't say that the 2 years of isolation were completely a negative thing, because it wasn't for me. Those 2 years of isolation, I got to know Collette through God's eyes. And I got to understand that he loves me. He loves me. And he wanted to show me how he sees me through his eyes. And it was a total different picture than how I saw myself. And he has a way, it's not like, oh, you're so, I mean, he gave me some really good talking to. And he would say to me, but it was so wrapped in love. That's the only way I could explain it. It was so wrapped in love. I started to understand who the creator God's voice was and who Colette's voice was. And there was a distinct difference when Creator's God's voice would be saying something that I needed correcting on, which was often, there would be such a love and it was wrapped in such a beauty. It's like this spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. It was like that. It was like such a, ouch, but yes, Lord, it's so healing. I receive that. But when it was me and the monkeys in my brain, there was a feeling of an anxiety and not good enough. I began to distinguish between his voice and my voice. And trust me, he's a lot kinder and loving to Collette than Collette was to Collette. So the more I grew in how he saw me, the more I grew in being transparent too. This is not an overnight thing. This is a journey. You are going to need to be patient with yourself. And it does cost. It costs greatly because you've got to come out of denial and look at your stuff in yourself. What is in you? Never mind looking at other people. There was only 3 fingers pointing back because guess what? I was in my room in timeout. Everything was pointing back to me. It was between me and God. I wasn't busy fixing you guys out there. I was busy being in front of God, being yielded in front of God, and him going, Collette, let's look at this. Let's look at this root of rejection. You bought a lie. Here's what he taught me. And it was a very profound time for me. I always knew that if there was garbage in my life, God would take care of it. I can yield all of this and confess all of this to God. I can. What I didn't realize is the woundedness that I had in my past that I shut down and wouldn't feel or acknowledge, that I just shut down. I end up leaving that behind and not dealing with it. And I did not grow. Where you are wounded, you cease to grow. So God showed me that, yes, I know he's the garbage man. But I also have to know that he wants to go back to some situations that I chose to just shut down from and enter into letting him go and heal me in that. God gave me a great object lesson. Years ago, I was with some friends and we were on a trip, and she had a beautiful ring on, a beautiful diamond ring, and she dried her hands with the towel and threw it in the garbage can. And her diamond ring went with it. Well, you want to see 4 ladies dumpster diving into that garbage can to get it because there was something valuable in there. I have tried in the past to self-help myself, self-heal myself. And the only problem with that is you can only go as far as you are not in denial. And so I wasn't getting a lot of that healing that I needed. But God showed me, Creator God showed me that he takes out the garbage. That if there's something in the past that's worth diving in for, be it a diamond ring, that he would take me to that. I'm not to go there myself because I'll become undone. There's things in my life that are just too much for me. But God knows the perfect timing for my healing. So he would take me in the past. And I remember him saying this to me in my isolation. And I said, oh God, hold my hand lest I come undone. Because I know there's some things that I purpose to forget. So he would take me by the hand and he would walk me to the past. And he'd say, Collette, there is where you picked up a lie of who you are. And I want to give you the truth through my eyes of who you truly are. Are you willing to journey with me? Because God is always about free will. And he doesn't make us, he invites us into a journey. So if the cost, I would say, is getting brave with yourself and being willing to go and do that work with God. And it took me 2 years of isolation to have a healing. I don't believe that work will ever be complete. It's a journey. It's not like I've arrived. I will never arrive, but I'm beginning to be more of me each day, more of who the authentic Collette is. Each time I travel with God to a specific thing he brings to light. And trust me, people, listen for it. It could be in a TV show, like, Runaway Bride. It could be in, like a scripture. It could be in a book. I remember reading a fluffy book on the weekend, and I had the most profound healing just in reading certain thing out of that book. Just be open to Creator God's direction and invitation. Your part is to say yes or no. It's your decision.
Collette, isolation, or spending too much time looking at yourself, I would think would have some dangers. Is there something, do you need to involve community somehow in that?
I would say, Bonnie, 100% yes. That's why I was led to the Monday Zoom time, because that was my accountability. That was my growth. You can't grow alone. You can't grow alone. You need relationship to grow. So to isolate yourself, drawing back, there's different kinds of isolation. I'm talking about, what are you going to do with isolation that's been forced upon you through COVID time? You can either sit there and go deep into despair, or you can take the time and yield it. And the object lesson I was shown for this was that I was driving down the street with my grandkids in the background. And my granddaughter said to me, Mimi, look at this. And she wanted me to look. And I said, oh, baby girl, I can't. Because where I look, I will steer. And I got right away, that's why you're depressed, Collette, because it was the beginning of pandemic. And I was in isolation. And I was like, counting the numbers every day and looking at the news every day, and add that to the political US stuff happening and all of this at the same time. And I heard very clearly, you're looking in the wrong direction and you're steering in the wrong direction. You are getting depressed. Put your eyes on me. And that's why I was able to refocus and look and say, tell me what I'm to learn in this. I have no authority to be able to change certain mandates out there, but what are you teaching me through this? What can I glean from this? So I learned to redirect. And the way he taught me, it will be different for everybody, but the way he taught me was stay off of social media for a while. Shut the news off for a while. And get busy making masks instead of counting numbers. Well, I'm so obedient of refocusing that. Let's just say I made a few masks, and I would say quite a few masks, okay? Because I had to keep redirecting. Soon as I wanted to count the numbers, I'd go to the sewing machine instead and put, music is very healing for me. So I'd put music on and I would sew, and I would, pray for needs, or, our Monday night group, we were very close. So we would have needs that we'd be praying through and not feeling alone when we were cut off. Yes, Bonnie, it can be really, really unhealthy for you to be on your own. And I understand in isolation that some people couldn't connect, but there was the Zoom, there was different things. And let's be honest, guys, this is how this was birthed, through isolation. This is how recovering your voice took plans and birth through this, because we realized the danger of being in isolation, that we need each other desperately.
Collette, I have heard sometimes a journey described as going down a road with a ditch on one side and a ditch on the other side. And the ditches represent extreme cases that you need to avoid. So in other words, journey down your road, try to avoid the ditches. When I hear you talking about receiving healing, realizing that you needed to love yourself, you needed to know yourself, and you were growing in that and receiving healing in that. I'm wondering what the ditches are in that journey. Is it possible that someone can be thinking that they are actually learning about themselves and loving themselves, but really they have veered off, like your story about driving the wrong way, into a ditch where they are focused so much upon themselves that the behavior becomes a self-centered behavior, a negative?
Oh, yes, Caroline, very much so. And I have to say, I took the ditch a few times. With me, I affectionately call it navel gazing, self-centeredness. That what was happening was that I was so desperate for my healing. I was trying to make it happen by things I was doing, be it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking courses and stuff, but when you think you have the answer to heal yourself, you are going to only be healed as far as you have the answers. Whereas when you submit to Creator God and say, show me, God, what is there? The healing is so deep onto deep and so out of left field that I didn't even know it was there. And yet that was the root of the problem of the tree while I was trying to pick the fruit off the tree. And meanwhile, the root is still down there. So I just kept getting another crop and another crop. So when you yield it to God and go, oh God, I'm listening. Speak, Lord, I'm listening. Then he will show you roots. It's a lot easier to yield and say, God, that is a root. And I see and I release and I confess. Come on, people, learn to confess to God. He already knows. You're not going to surprise him, okay? And learn to get real and lament with God, because you cannot heal if you keep covering your emotions. And I'm learning that. My emotions right now are all over the chart because I've never connected as deep as I have with my emotions until now. But it took me 2 years of yielding to God. But there's been growth, encouragement each step of the way,
Collette, I just wanted to ask you this question. There's sometimes a struggle that we go through when we are beginning to come into healing and we are beginning to realize, oh, that was a lie. And that behavior was all about listening to the lie. Is there a struggle to stay with a new behavior versus falling back into a more comfortable, older behavior?
Absolutely. The object lesson I got for that lesson was that my computer program was 2 + 2 = 5. That was the lie. And each situation, sometimes it's, daily, sometimes minute by minute, depending what kind of day I'm having. But it's like every time I spit out 2 + 2 = 5, I stop and I say, no, 2 + 2 does not equal 5, Collette. The truth is 2 + 2 = 4. And I put the truth, whatever the situation is, in that place and catch myself. It gets easier. At the beginning, it was extremely hard because that's all I knew. But as I start inviting truth into it, it takes up more space in me. So I recognize it faster. That doesn't mean I'm healed completely, people. It's a journey, but I recognize it faster. And I will stop and say, and I said to my husband, if you see me go, it's not for you, it's for me. That I have to say to him, I'm walking around the house and I'll go, stop, Collette. And then I will put in what the truth is. I said, so honey, if you see me doing this, A, it's because I'm crazy. And B, it's because I'm telling myself, stop. I literally have to say to myself, stop, Collette, that is not truth. That is not truth. And then I will put what Creator God just showed me as truth in it, in its place. And then I will walk that moment out in that truth until the next time, because it is a journey. It will continue. And I know it sounds exhausting. I know it sounds exhausting, but I'll tell you, not as exhausting as pretending you're something you're not. It's a lot easier to put truth in and be the real you, because you don't have to remember which mask you're wearing, in which circumstances you are. Oh, this is my church mask. Oh, this is my job mask. Oh, this is my mom mask. This is my Facebook mask. This is my Twitter mask. Just authentic across the board. You will never trip up if you bring yourself to the table.
Collette, part of being real is showing your emotions, whether it's, I'm not well today, or I'm really ecstatic today, or I'm miserable, all those things. And yet, one of the first things that people ask when you meet them or greet them is, how are you? And the typical answer is, I'm fine. And sometimes I think, and I've done this myself, when we ask, we're expecting that I'm fine because we really don't want to know the extent of what somebody's going through. What's your comments on that?
My comment would be, depending who you ask. Because depending who I ask, if somebody goes, how are you? And it's like somebody at the grocery store, I'll go, I'm fine. Or enjoying this beautiful day, or, kind of a fluff thing. But say if Bonnie or Carol Ann ask, I'll go, how much time you got? Or, do you really want to know? Or, okay, I'm struggling. Or I will be real, because we've grown that things take time to grow, plants and relationships, both. So my answer would be, depending who you ask. Society in general do not want the deep onto deep. And if you think it's a struggle for us, ask a guy that and see the answer, because they're definitely taught not to connect with their emotions. And I was raised, or I chose to shut down my emotions. And the problem with shutting down your emotions is you don't pick and choose which ones you shut down. When you erase all your emotions. You can't say, oh, I think I'll keep love. But yeah, I'm getting rid of anger or, frustration. It all gets shut down. So you're not truly living life fully. I mean, yeah, there's some of the emotions that we're struggling with. And just so you know, people, there's not good or bad emotions. God gave us them all. What we do with them turns them into good or bad. So emotions are not bad. Can I just say that to you? Because I believe that lie. Emotions are not bad. So I stop and I say to myself, when there's an emotion, why would I be angry over that? That is a silly thing. That's overreaction. What is the root there? And then I stop and say, okay, what is the root, the true root? Can you show me? Can you show me, Creator God, why I am being triggered? And the sad thing is that I'm just waking up to love too. I love my husband dearly. Anybody that knows us knows that. But the way I showed love was my love language. I would do for him. And that was like, I told you I loved you. I told you I loved you. I made your meal. I made you this. I made you that. But never entering my heart. And what I mean by that is, in that time of isolation, I went and saw my husband. He still had to work. Yeah, there was a lot of people off, but he was still working. And I went and saw him at his job one day, and he was out cutting the grass. And my emotions are waking up. And I looked and I felt such an overwhelming love for him. It was just like, your first infatuation when you see each other and that. It was just such an overwhelming love for him. And he was cutting the grass. I literally said, oh God, make him see me so I could talk to him. And then he did. And he came to the gate, and we actually had a kiss before we said goodbye. But I thought, is this everything I've been missing all my life? this connecting deeply with my husband all my life? What a waste. What a waste. So Carol Ann, I could have chose to go into the ditch and say, oh my gosh, or say, from this day forward, I am going to invite my emotions into it. And actually, Bonnie, that's how it started. I, at the beginning of pandemic, said, God, show me love. That first quiet time with him, I felt the question. If you could ask me anything, Collette, what would it be? What would it be if you could ask me any question? And I said, oh, there's so many. And it was, show me love. I didn't even go. It was like, just show me love. And I thought, well, geez, Collette, he said, ask a question. Show me love is not a question. It's, you know, a statement. And I felt in my spirit, God saying, well done. Well done. You asked for the best because I am love. And if you know me, it will change your life. And I see things now through that filter of loving him first. And then, of course, the second thing is then after knowing love from you, let me know my husband in love, and then overflow and overflow. So that was the first question that started my isolation journey, was show me love, which is the character of God. For God so loved the world. He gave. Love gives. Selfishness takes and takes. You want to know a good way to see how far you want to enter into a relationship? See if they're willing to share beyond themselves, or if it's all about them. That's a good place to start to see how much you're going to release your heart.
Collette, do you have any final words that you would like to share with our audience today?
I do. I would like to validate everybody's story, that isolation affected us all differently. I recognize that it costs some people big time to be in isolation. For me, in a nutshell, it was being sent to my room by myself. And I had to get real with myself first in my room, because I had nobody else to argue with but myself. So I was being real with me first, because I didn't have to pull everything together. I didn't have to say, I got to get myself together. I need to do this, this, and this. I'm picking up my grandkids. I'm doing this. I had a season that I could have a schedule breakdown. And knowing that we're in lockdown for whatever time they had issued us, sent to our room, be it the 2 weeks or whatever, I knew that I had that season that I didn't have to have my act together. The lie that I believed before, that I had to have my act together. Also, be kind to yourself. You need to be kind to yourself as you grow, because as I was awakening to emotions and awakening to who I truly am, I need to give myself grace to make mistakes too. Or like I said to my husband, my pendulum was like this. Now it swung way over here. Eventually it's going to be in the middle. Today is not your lucky day. And just hold it. Wait for it. So I guess I would say to you guys, give yourself grace when your pendulum's over here, but don't make any decisions, okay? Whatever you do, do not make any decisions. I love to say, never evaluate your life. If you're sick, tired, I added grieving, and I added the pandemic to that one. So don't make major decisions when your pendulum is there. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in a ditch. Wait for the balance to come. You'll know it. When the balance is there. Nobody can tell you. It's an inside out thing. You are the only one can establish that. I look like Prince Charles. Couldn't resist, Carol Ann. It did the ear thing. Okay,
This is so difficult.
isn't it? But doesn't it cut you off? You're right, Bonnie. It cuts us off. Our personalities hit. You know what I mean? It just, you know?
Like how do you interview somebody like this?
It's okay.
Takes a while to get me back. Here. Okay, I can't
Oh, no,
see
it's
in that
fine.
little picture. Okay.
Your hair is lovely.
Yeah, it's fine. No, it is.
I'm so vain, sorry.
No, we're not just.
No, it's just that
Okay,
because of
first of all,
the headphones I want to hide.
first of all, you might be asking the right person with Carol Ann, but you remember me. I have a bad hair life. So, you're kind of wasting asking me, but go ahead and ask Carol Ann. I'm not Bonnie. I want to be Bonnie, but I'm not Bonnie. Okay.
The funny thing is, don't we all want to be somebody else? Like we're so, oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. We're never happy with ourselves. We always want to be, oh, if I could only have the personality of Collette. Oh, if I could only have the wisdom of Carol Ann. Oh, if, dot. That was awesome. That was the best part of the whole thing.
I'm starting to loosen up.
Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Encore. Une autre fois. Okay.
And when you're sent to your room, you have only yourself to argue with.